We're also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. We're on affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on Kekeli Radio in Ho and Menuveve FM in Aflao. We are on Bedering FM in Bunkrugu and Ganga FM in Jirapa. We are on Twitter Spaces. We are on Facebook. We are on myjoyonline.com. The Midday News is sponsored by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. This afternoon, details emerge as ECG and IPPs agree on payment plan that covers only 35% of electricity generated.
Out of that total, that 65% is idle and excess capacity cost. The proper energy sold is almost around 25 to 30%. So the conversation is, why don't we pay energy cost, which is fuel plus the capacity used for the required energy?
We'll tell you why government is not paying for the other 65% generated by the IPPs that is now being considered idle, at least for now. Meanwhile, the IPP say has secured a letter of credit agreement with the Electricity Company of Ghana as it moves swiftly to finalize the agreement by Tuesday.
An amount of money monthly to the IPPs is like a revolving fund with the features of a letter of credit.
We'll get to hear the views of a former power minister. Also, Court of Appeal sets aside High Court decision that directed that the trial of former Kokobot CEO Dr. Stephen Opuni should start afresh.
And I think that it is actually a little bit backward, with all respect, for a trial which has advanced to this stage for another to be made, that we should start de novo, to amount to giving any of the parties to the matter a second bite at the cherry. And I think that is improper.
We have details as it orders the new judge to rely on evidence already gathered to continue the case. Also, the Attorney General has described as unhealthy comments by the Domahine calling on government to discontinue the criminal trial of Asin North MP-elect James Jachikwesing.
I think that is very unhealthy for our democratic dispensation, and therefore we must not countenance him.
Also this afternoon, three-time NPP flag-bearer aspirant Alan Kojo Tremantin becomes the first of 10 aspirants to appear before the Professor Kwabena Committee as the party begins the 4-day process today.
I've just had the opportunity of going through the vetting process for presidential aspirants for our party.
I'll take you live to the vetting premises shortly. We have sports.
Is dying. Those are the words of a former Black Stars player as he launches a fierce attack on the FA.
Also, the country's banks officially rest soft-skin bullion vans for the ballistic armor-fitted trucks.
It's good to report that now the process has been streamlined. So we have the vans, and as I speak with you, the soft-skin vans have been erected, and we are using the armored bullion vans.
That's and more in this afternoon's edition of the Midday News. I am Emefa Apau, and this is your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Please stay on for details. Many thanks for choosing us this afternoon. Joy News is learning of an independent agreement reached between the Electricity Company of Ghana and the Chamber of Independent Power Producers for a payment plan that covers only 35% of electricity generated by the producers. The other 65%, according to Joy News sources, constitute power generated but not needed. The two parties reached a deal last Friday following the threat by the IPPs to stop generation of an outstanding $1.7 billion debt. Managing Director of ECG, Samodu Big Mahama, tells Joy News that terms of the agreement have been accepted.
Their problem is more of the arrears and them continually having to keep piling up more arrears. Cash Waterfall currently deals with the energy sold. But do not forget, we have capacity charges that are lying down, that are accruing. That is the main problem. The fixed charges that are lying down, that are accruing. Because for what we use, if we're able to pay for what we use, what is lying down that you are not using, that you are being charged for, where do you find the money to pay for it? In effect, you can pick an IPP's total debt. Out of that total debt, 65% is idle and excess capacity cost. The proper energy sold is almost around 25 to 30%. Until such a time that we are using up the full capacity. Don't get me wrong, for you to provide energy, you would use a certain capacity to provide that energy. So the conversation is, why don't we pay energy cost, which is fuel plus the capacity used for the required energy? So let's say if I use 50% of the plant, let me pay for that 50%. Why are you charging me for the other 50% that I'm not using at this point in time?
Well, he also indicates that ECG is committed to pay more when revenue generation improves.
This whole thing is about certainty. If you look within this period, it's quite cold. So in as much as you're consuming electricity, you are not consuming that much. So sales have reduced. Most people would not have even realized that electricity business is seasonal. Now, what has been missing in this sector is certainty of payment. Because of this sporadic nature, today you might receive a certain amount. Next week, it's less. The following week, it's higher. The following week is less. So you cannot even plan or you cannot even budget, and your lenders become worried.
Well, that's the Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Dubik Mahama. The Chamber of Independent Power Producers has meanwhile disclosed that it has secured a letter of credit agreement with the Electricity Company of Ghana. Speaking to Joy News, Chief Executive of the IPP's Chamber, Elikplim Apetogbo, says they are currently finalizing works on the document for payment to start by close of week.
We have received an offer from the Electricity Company of Ghana that is to make available an amount of money monthly to the IPPs. It's like a revolving fund with the features of a letter of credit, but not a letter of credit. So basically, I would say that he has made a reasonable proposal to us that we are comfortable with to keep our operations going on.
Do we know how much will be made available?
Sorry, I wouldn't be able to mention that.
You were emphatic that you needed cash alert before you would back down. How did it turn out that a mere proposal could get you to back down?
It's not a mere proposal. I will not also classify his proposal something in a medium term or long term. His proposal is something that will be addressed this week. So we expect cash crystallization this week. We are expected to go through the offer, sign it and return to him, and funds will be transferred.
Well, so is this a fair deal, and how can this be resolved permanently, especially when the agreement for most emergency power plants expires between 2023 and 2024? Let's bring in, thankfully, a former power minister, also a member of the Mines and Energy Committee, Dr. Kwabena Donkor. We are grateful for your time here on the Midday News. So first, let's talk about your take on the agreement between ECG and the IPP for the temporal payment of only power generated and taken by the country, and we are told it's only 35%.
First of all, I disagree with that 35%. Records do not show that. Indeed, in 2022, in certain months, we went into our reserve margin. So it cannot be 35%. Absolutely not. Indeed, if we were only consuming 35% of what we produce, the Minister for Energy will not talk about the need for additional generation. That is not right. That is absolutely not right.
I know there was an intervention from your committee, especially also for the IPPs not to shut down their plants. But we're told that most, if not all, of the emergency power plants agreement will expire next year. And that means our power situation is waiting to hit us. What's the best way out of all this, you'd say?
Again, that is not factual.
What's the fact then?
That is not factual. The emergency power plants we brought in were AXA, Power. Ameri was a different type of animal because as we speak, we own Ameri 100% at no extra cost today. So if you talk about the actual early power, if you talk of the emergency power plants, they were brought in for 5 years. Access contract has lapsed, and the government has an ECG. They've gone ahead to renew it. So that is not an issue. They've gone ahead to renew the power agreement, extend it. So which emergency power agreements are lapsing today? They should tell us which ones. You see, if you, for example, the Senate plant, it's not an emergency plant. Neither is Sen Energy. It's not emergency. Neither is Twin City. Those ones were not emergency power plants. They are regular power plants. The emergency ones were only for 5 years. We signed for 5 years generally. to give the country space to plan and have a long-term power purchase agreement.
Well, but in spite of all that, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, we are faced with a situation. Yes. At least we're saved by the bill. The IPPs did not shut down. We're talking about permanent solutions at this point. You've been there before. What is the way out?
Look, the way out is, first of all, ECG has to improve its efficiency. ECG loses about 30% of the power they buy, either in technical losses or commercial losses. And their margin, it's not 30%. Very few industries in this country will have a margin of 30%. So if you are losing 30% of what you buy, you are definitely not going to be able to pay for it in the long term. So the long term, the first one is efficiency. ECG itself has to reduce its technical and commercial losses to the barest minimum. That is one.
Okay.
Two, once we don't have an emergency situation, we should be looking at efficiency in generation. As we speak, the Contema plant owned by VRE is a simple cycle plant. There is a need for a third unit, the heat recovery unit, so that the cost of generation there will come down.
Okay.
We have a similar situation with the Senate plant and TT2PP also in Tema. So first of all, we should be looking at generation efficiency. Must we have simple cycle plants now when we can have combined cycle plants which come with reduced tariffs?
Well, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, that's all time will allow us for now. My colleague, Kwabena, will be catching up with you in Parliament for more on this. But let me take you to the court. And the trial of former Kokobot CEO, Dr. Stephen Opuni, will no longer start afresh. This is because the Court of Appeal has, in a unanimous decision, ruled that the High Court got it wrong when it indicated that it would no longer rely on its records gathered since 2017. The new judge, Justice Kwesi Anochi-Jima, had indicated it would be unfair for him to adopt proceedings that were saddled with numerous allegations. Well, the Court of Appeal, disagrees with all this. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable joins us with details. He's been in court. And Joseph, first off, give us a brief background to how we got to this point.
Dr. Stephen Opuni has been standing trial for causing financial loss to the state since 2017. The case has, for most parts, been handled by Justice Clemens Onyenuga, who started the matter. He was at the Court of Appeal and sitting as an additional High Court judge. Eventually, he got to the Supreme Court and continued hearing the matter. Has since retired. There was a point where he was even restrained by the Supreme Court from hearing the case and was subsequently allowed to hear it. Now, when he retired and Justice Kwesi Anochi took over, he took the view that because the records gathered since 2017 were fraught with allegations, it was in the interest of justice that the matter starts afresh. The AG disagreed and took the matter up to the Court of Appeal.
Well, let's talk about the Court of Appeal's decision then and what it means for the case going forward.
As far as the Court of Appeal is concerned, Justice Kwesi Anochi misdirected himself when he considered matters which were not relevant in concluding that the records have been fraught with allegations. And so going forward, the Court is asking that the matter continues, i.e. the records that have been gathered by Justice Clemens Onyenuga be adopted and used. But MFA, it's interesting to learn that the judge who delivered that decision that the case should start afresh, Justice Kwesi Anochi, has been transferred to the Ashanti region. Takes effect today, we understand. So it will mean that this particular matter will have to be handled by a new judge. But the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, is satisfied with the decision of the court.
The High Court was wrong in taking into account what the court described as relevant factors and coming to a determination that the trial to start again. And so the court has given a ruling which is binding on the High Court for the proceedings to be adopted and for us to move on with the trial. That yes, it is actually not unconventional for criminal proceedings to be adopted in a trial. And so it cannot be correct that when it comes to civil matters, there's provision for adoption of evidence, and in criminal matters, there's no such provision. Indeed, the true position of the law is that it is actually up to the trial judge to make that determination. And the trial judge makes that determination based on factors that it considers necessary.
Well, Joseph, the Attorney General has been all out about a number of issues. He complains first about delays in prosecuting cases.
Yes, he says it's becoming a trend that persons who are taken to the court seem to think that when a matter is dealt with expeditiously, it's not in their favor. He says he finds that position quite unacceptable.
I say on record that is only an accused person who has no faith in his own defense, or who has no faith in his own innocence, that will delay proceedings. So if an accused person has faith in his innocence, he would be interested in having the proceedings concluded. Why would he be resorting to delay tactics and whatever? Okay. Indeed, we are all equal before the law. If an ordinary person in another criminal matter, as have been witnessed already in other cases, can have his proceedings adopted, why not proceedings in these so-called high-profile cases?
Well, stay with me, Joseph, because over the weekend, Domahene, who is also president of the Bono Regional House of Chiefs, Osajifo Osiadeyo Ajimambedu II, requested that the trial of the Asin North MP-elect James Jachikwesin be dropped. He delivered the keynote address at the John Evans Atamil's 10th anniversary lecture in Sunyai.
As a matter of urgency, I'm appealing to the President of the Attorney General, President of the Republic, if he has any role to play. That trial should be aborted. The Attorney General should, as a matter of urgency, file a nolle prosecutor to end that particular decision. Sir, make a way because but was what ye did the Ghana for attempt. Ye did the Asin North for attempt.
And you put this to the Attorney General, Joseph. What was his response?
As well as the Domahene is actually a High Court judge as well. It sits as Justice Daniel Mensah at the court at Tema. The AG was asked what he made of these comments by the Domahene, and he says you formally issue a statement that addresses generally comments that he deems were unhealthy for the justice administration.
I'm not going to comment on it right now. I'll come up with a proper statement on the matter, and it will be in respect of all comments generally which have the tendency to subvert the administration of justice. I think that is very unhealthy for our democratic dispensation, and therefore we must not countenance him.
Attorney General and Minister of Justice Godfred Yeboadame. And it's time for your election headquarters, and three-time NPP flag-bearer aspirant Alan Kojo Tremanting has become the first of 10 aspirants seeking to lead the NPP into the 2024 election to appear before the vetting committee of the party. The former trade minister is expected to answer questions about his eligibility, general party matters and national affairs before the vetting committee, chaired by former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Kwe. Well, I'll take you there shortly. That's the NPP's Greater Accra Region office right here in Kokomlemle, where the vetting is taking place. But first, though, listen to a member of the committee and also its spokesperson, MP for Equiapim South, Obi Amwa, explaining what the committee will be looking out for.
These persons have filed their nominations, so they fill their forms, and we require to check whether indeed they qualify under the Constitution. If you look at Article 62, it talks about the person required to be a citizen of Ghana by birth, and whether the person is 40 years and above, and whether the person is otherwise qualified to be elected as a member of parliament. That would then lead us to Article 94, where the criteria for those who want to stand as members of parliament are spelled out. Yes, so once you meet all these requirements, it means you are fit and qualified to be voted on as to whether you can lead the party. Of course, once they are here, party matters will be talked about, governance matters will be talked about. Any other issue related to your quest to lead the party will come up.
Well, let me take you to the MPP's Greater Accra Region office here in Kokomlemle, and my colleague Samuel Imbura has taken your walk there. He's actually pitched camp and joins us on the line with details. Samuel, in what company did Alan Tremanting arrive, and did he say anything to the media ahead of his vetting and after?
Well, Mr. Alan Tremanting came with just core members of his team. As witnessing the filing of nomination is quite different. No supporters have been allowed at the party office here to come and support their candidates. So you only see these aspirants coming along with their team members. So he has been able to go through the process. Just 15 minutes ago that he was discharged, he was before the vetting committee for over 1 hour, 40 minutes. So after the vetting, he told the media that it was a successful one, but he didn't tell us what exactly transpired during the vetting.
I've just had the opportunity of going through the vetting process for presidential aspirants for our party, and I had a good interaction with the committee. As you're all aware, I've been through this exercise on several other occasions, so I'm quite familiar and comfortable with this process. I think the important thing for you is to know that tomorrow I will start my constituency tours in Greater Accra. I have decided that I'll introduce an innovation into my constituency tours by party executives together, not just within their own constituencies, but in a few other constituencies in the cluster. That will help energize the rank and file of our party.
That's Alan Kojo Chairman. Now, Mbura, just before I let you off, energy analyst Kojo Poku and Vice President Baumia are also expected to face the committee today. What's their situation?
So, Mr. Kojo Poku is currently before the committee. Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Baumia is there to arrive, but his advanced security detail is already here waiting for his arrival. But I had a brief engagement with Mr. Kojo Poku before his encounter with the committee, and he says that he's optimistic of being among the first 5 that will be selected in the Super Delegates Conference.
That's my colleague Samuel Imbura bringing us details throughout the day, and be watching out on our social media platforms, also on myjoyonline.com. The Midday News takes a quick break. Is sponsored by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. Court of Appeal sets aside High Court decision that directed that the trial of former Kokobot CEO Dr. Stephen Opuni should start afresh. We've also been hearing from the Attorney General, who's described as unhealthy. Comments by the Domahine calling on government to discontinue the criminal trial of a Sin North MP-elect James Jachikweisen. We return with sports, and the country's banks officially rest of skin bullion vans for the ballistic ammo-fitted trucks.
It's good to report that now the process has been streamlined. So we have the vans, and as I speak with you, the soft-skin vans have been arrested, and we are using the armored bullion vans.
Imagine say water wake up at dawn, both, chop, where it vanish for your area for 2 weeks. You not get one drop safe inside your tank.
Hey. Haja, our life was in dangerous.
Only our neighbor gets water with water tank.
Water tank?
Yes, water tank. Mamma mia, that water tank get meter for checking water level. That water tank be fine past Kumasi Selenium. That water tank be tough like Ghana Army. That water tank, they carry water pepe, so say some no go left inside the supply tank. What a tank! As my boss, Mr. Poncho, go talk.
Beautiful, durable, with water level indicator and accurate volume of water. Water tank. What a tank! By Duraplast.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Midday News. Let's do sports.
Thank you very much, MF. Now, you know what? Ghana's men's football team will not participate at next year's Olympic Games after failing to qualify from the group stages of the U23 AFCON. They become the latest Ghanaian side to fall short of their target under this current administration. You remember, the Black Stars were also knocked out from the group stages of the last AFCON and also the World Cup. Now, Ghana's home-based side as well, known as the Black Galaxies, they also did not advance from the group stages at the last CHAN tournament. Now, the U17 and U20 have also failed to qualify for next year's AFCON tournament. Ajman has played for most of the national team levels and was pretty blunt with his assessment of Ghana football.
When you take it up there to the head, whatever it is, if there is a problem, you are the one to be blamed. I think right now, the AFA need an emergency meeting tomorrow, this week, get people on the committee and check what is really going on in our football, because gradually it's decent. And where it is going is very dangerous. It's getting dangerous every blessed day. It's not every month or week, every blessed day. We need to look at the technical directorate there, the report they get, because it's not only the blaster that is failing. So if the under 17 is failing, then the 20 is failing, then the 23 is failing, the 10 team is failing, and the blasters is failing. That means the technical director side, there's a question mark there. Nobody hates any AC. Me, if I talk, I don't get anything from there. I don't know anyone there. I don't hate anyone there. But the thing that has given me something to eat, I will not allow it to spot right now that the future generation will not get anything from it.
Well, that's former Black Stars midfielder Ajiman Bedu.
Well said. Beautiful pink shirt there. Thank you very much, Mubarak. Now, let's talk about our Floods of Trauma series. And as flood waters spread, they threaten lives, inundate homes and businesses, destroy property, damage, and prevent access to essential needs. In our episode for today, Nana Boachi Yadom visits residents of Dichemso in the Ashanti region facing apprehension as their homes experience consistent flooding.
This isn't a moat house, neither is it a stilt building. This is an ordinary home in Dichemso, a popular community in Kumasi. In a traumatic event such as flooding, residents experience difficulty sleeping. They get depressed, angry, and heightened feelings of anxiety. With the slightest formation of dark clouds, Ikwenya Akwa trembles. Her house is flooded after a downpour a week ago.
Just a year, just hope you are wanting. I got about 3 hours, 4 hours. And Sana, what by inside?
When it rains, it gets to my neck. When the house floods, you have to go out for about 3 hours before you can get back to the house.
A year, and then we have another Muhanya at check. Can I crack a moon to me, Jana say?
The flood waters reached the window level of the building and covered almost all her personal belongings in her room. Days after the heavy flooding, she is still counting her losses.
We are
suffering. My child is unable to go to school because his books get wet. My room is flooded.
Streams in the community are blocked with gutters clogged. This isn't enough to properly channel the water at a rate that allows it to fully transport all the dirt, twigs, and leaves it collects, causing floods in the community.
Because of a formula, I say, and
this nice mosque isn't functional anymore because of flood. Authorities should fix the gutters for us. If not, our challenge will continue anytime it rains.
For Joy News, my name is Nana Kwabena Donkor, Kumasi.
Now, banks in the nation have begun deploying armored bullion vans for cash transit, increasing the protection of security personnel and valuables. The modification comes in a response to Bank of Ghana's recommendations following an increase in robbery, assaults and killing of police officers. We can hear from the association, Ghana Association of Banks, John Ewa, President.
Fortunately, we are where we are. Process delayed a bit. In some instances, some of the applications took several months before we had the all clear. It's good to report that now the process has been streamlined. So we have the vans, and as I speak with you, the Susking vans have been, should I say, rested, and we are using the armored bullion vans, which will be augmented with further acquisitions. You don't want a situation where you have armored vehicles running the streets as though we are in a certain kind of tyrannical environment. We want to operate in a manner where we can safely use a few vans. Banks can also begin sharing cash within locations. If we plan our operations properly, it is possible to achieve that. And we've already started engagement within our own community.
John Ewa is President, Ghana Association of Banks. And with the thunderous comeback, Achimota School resurfaces on the NSMQ battleground, lashing their opponents, Lashibi Community SHS and Ebenezer SHS. Michael Ashali has more in the following report.
Two-time winners of the National Science and Maths Quiz, Achimota School is once again hungry for an NSMQ title after 19 years of drought. In 2022, the school missed out on the nationals after a painful defeat to Laboni Senior High School in the regional qualifiers. Now, they are poised to reclaim their glory.
SO4, 4 minus.
That's incorrect. Achimota School for the bonus.
We have H2, SO4, 2 minus.
Simple.
Well, after 4 rounds, it was Achimota School
that was crowned the overall victor of the final contest. Well, you could say that they lashed Lashibi Senior High School, including Ebenezer Senior High School.
Well, we came prepared and so we delivered.
Although they won, all eyes were on Tyrone Magai, conspicuously visible among the Achimota NSMQ team, cheering his colleagues on. After he was earlier spotted sparring in a trial contest, many thought he would represent his school on the big stage. For now, he has been left out of the 3-man squad. Coordinator of the school believes that they are on course to unseat regional champions Prosecuting Legon.
That's the National Science and Maths Quiz, ending today's edition of the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM, also on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Your comments might affect your promotion. Majority Leader Ondo Mahine's call for discontinuance of Jachi Kwesen's case. It's on myjoyonline.com. You can read more. We have Living Word with Pastor Mensa Otabil up next. I am Emefa Apau. Have a good afternoon.